because also that was going on. I was teaching a course on Vyaktipanchaka Rahasya, this Nyāya text. And that was a 10-hour class which we recorded, I and two students of mine, in Sanskrit, and also in a traditional style. So, also all of us were very tense because 3 people, right? So, and also in a conversational, traditional style. Loads and loads of slides and all that.
Okay. Okay. You have been a Sanskrit student earlier?
No, I have never done Sanskrit. I was in linguistics, basically. So I did that time my specialization was formal semantics. So I trained basically as a linguist. Then some professors wanted me to do either maths or philosophy. I tried maths. That was no option. So I took up philosophy. I joined Madras University. So that's the beginning.
When did you join Madras?
I joined Madras in 2001. 2002. That's the time. Then I joined Madras University.
That's very recent. Huh? I was a Madras University student way back in '89.
I know that. I heard a lot about you from Professor Mishra, Professor Paneet Selvam, and most of my professors, and Professor Gopalakrishnan. So and I didn't go there to learn philosophy, though. I more than that, I wanted to learn music. I wanted to learn Carnatic. So I went, but then I thought that I could also do this, and so before that, I never studied Sanskrit or Shastra or anything. But Madras is a place you drink rasam there, you speak in Sanskrit. I'm not, if you want. So that's it.
Very interesting career.
Not really. It's very, I would say very, I don't know, things happen pretty much. I was not aware of what actually was happening or whatever. So I never thought that I would concentrate on any academic thing. I thought, I was learning music from my.
Yeah, but where did you get trained in Nyāya and all?
I never got trained. I never learned. Never. I rather learned a bit of Advaita. That also very secretly. Sometimes Mani Shastrigar came to our department to sit with me 2-3 times and all that stuff. Some sadhas and all that stuff. But then Nyāya, nowhere really. So that way I don't have any guru in Nyāya. So, or even in Advaita, but I still think that Mani Shastrigar is my Acharya. But that's a different thing. But there is no proper this thing. There's no training. But, sometimes you feel that some of the things are there. So that was my feeling. I thought that, I had some exposure. I thought that I could do it. So then I started doing that's it.
We'll talk more. I'm really interested because there are a couple of things that cross match, like the interest in music and Sanskrit and logic. All these 3 are my favorites too.
Great. See, that's the thing. I never thought of doing academic stuff, and never. I never planned. I always thought that I was learning music. And but then you do a little bit. So, but that little thing, slowly I started liking. So, although I never planned, means I was very much anti-Shastra. So that was also a conversion, and I realized that I liked it. So that's how.
Wonderful. Ramya, another 2 minutes more, sharp at 7. Do you hear me, dear?
Ma'am, she may will be.
Ma'am, I'm doing it.
Hey,
Mr. Guhaji. Hello, Guhaji.
Hello.
हेलो, कहिए। नमस्कार।
Namaskaram.
आप बहुत धन्यवाद है आपको, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद है, आपका स्वागत करता हूँ। और ये जो विशेष से आप सत्प्रतिपक्ष टेक्स्ट को क्यों चुन लिए?
Uh, I actually I have been working for a very long time
क्योंकि सत्प्रतिपक्ष जो है वो तो
on
नव्य न्याय शास्त्र का प्रभारी जो है, हेत्वाभास का विचार है। मैंने उसमें आप क्या कोई रिसर्च वगैरह किए हैं क्या? क्यों
yeah
उसको उस टेक्स्ट
I
को चुनने का क्या इरादा है?
so the thing is I published one paper on it's again can somebody I think it's difficult for me to speak.
But sir, sir, after the lecture, sir ne discuss kiya. Ishtam samay undavu namukku.
Yeah.
Namukku thodakamo, but sir.
So now I think it's fine. So I published one paper on not on Satpratipakṣa, but on something else, on Mahavidyanumana. When I was working as a Fulbright fellow at UT Austin, there I used this idea of Satpratipakṣa. Then I published a paper in a Routledge volume. It was actually a chapter, basically on Satpratipakṣa. So, and I have been very interested in it. So, Samanya Nirukti, my problem is when
Dr. Guha, if I can intervene, we can have the discussion after your talk, and our Honorable Vice Chancellor is here. So it's time for us to start. Shall we start? And then you can have your discussion with Professor Bhatt during the course of discussion. There is ample time.
Of course.
Okay. Over to Shimi.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, one and all. It is indeed a great pleasure to welcome all of you to this lecture program to celebrate World Philosophy Day. The program is organized by International School of Sri Shankaracharya Studies, SSUS Kaladi, and sponsored by Indian Council of Philosophical Research, New Delhi. We appreciate you to taking time off your busy schedule to join us today. We have lined us for you to be fruitful and engaging. Thank you. Well, let me invite Professor Nyāya, Director, International School of Sri Shankaracharya Studies and Head of the Department of Philosophy, SSUS Kaladi, for the welcome address. Ma'am, over to you.
Kalyana Gunadatraya Pamida Bhala Dayane Shri Venkatanadaya Srinivasa Namo Narayana. Welcome to all of you to this wonderful evening where we are going to share some of our thoughts. Professor, can you mute your mic? Ramakrishna.
Yes. Okay.
So this evening, we are going to share some of our thoughts on fallacies in Indian logic as part of this World Philosophy Day celebrations. Welcome to all of you to this beautiful evening. And a word or two on ISSS, that is International School of Sri Shankaracharya Studies. Dr. Guha is joining us for the first time, probably some of you as well. So what I do on ISS would be apt here. International School of Sri Shankaracharya Studies has been joining hands with Indian Council of Philosophical Research for the first time. I have sent a proposal to Honorable Member Secretary, and he was kind enough. Mr. Sachidanand Mishra has been kind enough to grant this funds for us, and I'm grateful to him. International School of Sri Shankaracharya Studies is one institute which dream high with regard to promoting Indian philosophical systems. The newly recruited directorate plan to convert this as a platform, a global platform, where scholars would come and join to discuss, debate, and present their views, particularly on Vedanta tradition, of course on Advaita, also on all other Vedanta traditions. And as you all know, for Shankara, all the rest of the systems are the Purvapaksha. So therefore, in order to appreciate Shankara, you need to look at other systems as well. So we plan to convert this as a platform where everyone interested in Indian philosophical studies and make it contemporaneous. You know, the task is that you need to have the textual tradition, and at the same time, you should make it relevant to the context as well. So the text in the context, something which Professor Guha is planning to do, I presume, is what is our target as well. And let me also introduce some of the plans, some of the programs that we have been undertaking as part of the school. Several programs are already being worked out. The first is the monthly study circle, and all my heart and soul. Of course, I also have Department of Philosophy to lead with, but my whole attention is on the study circle, which at one point of time I was dreaming about. In the study circle, what we do is we pick up a text, the original text, and then read the text and give English rendition to it and then discuss over it. For the past 2 months, we have been doing it, and we have addressed with great scholars like Professor Bhatt and other several scholars join us to read on 2 Athikaranas. On Rachananupapatti, we have done Acharya Shankara Bhashya, Brahmasutra, Shankara Bhashya, Rachananupapatti. Professor Mishra has Dr. Guha was mentioning about Professor Mishra. Mishra has read that. And also on yet another Adhikarana, I forget. I think it is Asambhava Adhikarana of Brahmasutra Bhashya again, which was discussed last month. Yet another program that we are shortly going to join the coming 23rd is International Lecture Series. And Professor Anand Vaidya would deliver the first lecture on Ramanuja and panpsychism. And in this international lecture, again, what we are planning to do is that the common title that is given for the international lecture series is Teacher, Text, and the Tradition. Each scholar will be asked to pick up a teacher, pick up one of the texts that he has written or she has written, and then explain how it fixes in the tradition. For instance, Ramanuja and the Sri Bhashya, and how he has promoted the Vishishtadvaita tradition through this particular text, and this is what we target. Scholar in Residence is yet another program that we have, and also textual study workshops that along with all the other faculties, we do realize that children these days don't read the text. And again, Dr. Guha was just mentioning about how he picks up the original text of Nyāya. So this is exactly what has to be done. So textual study, we will plan to have a 5-day long lecture. It will be on an Advaita text, and then there will be a workshop, and also Vakyartha Sadhis. Vakyartha Sadhis, the routine debate method in which we used to carry or work out philosophy in this land for centuries and centuries. And let us revive that practice and rebuild it. And South is a very flourishing land for practicing all this, because this land below the Vindhya hills have nurtured all the streams of Vedanta tradition, and invariably they were juxtaposed with other traditions, including Buddhism. And therefore, I believe that South India has a greater responsibility in promoting and contextualizing Indian philosophical traditions. I seek the blessings of Acharya Shankara and also the cooperation of all my colleagues, young colleagues like Dr. Guha, to strengthen our hands in this great venture. So friends, today is World Philosophy Day. We have none other than our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dharmaraj Adat, to chair the session. I'm indeed fortunate that he takes particular interest in the progress of the school. And I'm also grateful. Probably I'll not have another chance to express my gratitude to have placed this precious school in my hands, where I can really do things. And since he'll retire in a few days, I take this opportunity to register my gratitude to have placed me, to have taken me into trust to place this great institution in my hands. And I promise that I'll do the best that I can for the progress of this school. As you know, I'm an ambitious director, of course, and I have charted out several programs, and he was very kind enough to grant most of them, and also placed trust in a philosopher who has only informally learned Sanskrit. And I want to keep up the trust that has been placed on me, and I also promise to that effect. Sir, I welcome you to this platform where Dr. Guha would be delivering the World Philosophy Day lecture program. So friends, this evening we have picked up a wonderful topic, particularly of interest to epistemologists, that is fallacies in Nyāya logic, with special reference to the counterbalance, that is Satpratipakṣa. And we have none other than Nyāya Guha, who has a very impressive career to his credit. He has had his education. That is again, I was just having a chat with him prior to the session. So he was basically trained in linguistics, BA and MA in his master's is in linguistics, I think from Hyderabad, Central University of Hyderabad. And from there, he went up to my university, University of Madras. When I studied, it was a Center of Advanced Studies, but no more. I think Dr. Guha wouldn't have seen the Center of Advanced Studies because it was depromoted. So he has had his PhD from Madras University and PhD from Lancaster University, UK, on postulation, Abdhavati, in Indian philosophy. That is again a very interesting topic. And postdoctoral with the Nehru Fulbright, very, very prestigious scholarship in the University of Texas, USA. And talking about his working experience, currently he is working in IIT, BHU, in the Department of Humanistic Studies. And prior to that, he has worked in Manipal. I think Manipal is a place where, you know, all the serious scholars do step in and then they move out to bigger universities. I see it with Mrinal Kaul, several of my colleagues. And he has also, I learned that he worked in Presidency University, Kolkata, where Amita Dev was once upon a time a Vice Chancellor, in IIT Kanpur as well. And he has apparently initiated his career as teaching assistant in Liverpool, UK. And I also went through the papers that he has published as a young scholar, the papers is really impressive. The story Theory of Truth on Arthapathy, a monstrous inference called The Cantor's Diagonal Argument, Teaching Logic, Cracking a hard nut. No black scorpion is falling, I think, abhava. Then Lakshana as a creative function of language. Tarka as a cognitive evaluator. What impressed me is that he has great interest in cognitive science, and then he is trying to meet the two ends, the classical logic with the contemporary cognitive science. Yeah, Indian cognitivism and phenomenology of conceptualization in Arthavati again, coercion in Nyāya, valid cognition in Navya Nyāya, and I think he is currently working on Navya Nyāya, and also non-existence and conceptual analysis. Vyaptivacha Bhashya, yes, that is what he is trying to do currently. And he has also delivered several lectures. I think around 16 lectures were made by him across the globe. A very, very impressive career. I congratulate Dr. Guha, who is my junior colleague from the same university. He tells me that he has written to me that he has been told about me when he was in the University of Madras, and always wanted to meet me. Wonderful, Dr. Guha. That we are now at least meeting in the virtual platform, and shortly, if COVID permits us, I'll definitely invite you down to our university and make my students meet you. Wonderful to have you in this platform, and we are really looking forward to listen from your mouth on the fallacies. Indian, in the Western logic, we have different types of fallacies, but in India, we have hetu abhasas. The abhasa hetu is what has been addressed in inferential fallacy. As we all know, fallacious reason doesn't take us towards valid inference. So where reason go fallacious? This is what we are trying to look at, and we are familiar with the 5 types of fallacies. When the hedu is asiddha, when the hedu is not available, asiddha, and then it can have 3 types: ashraya siddha, swarupa siddha, and vyapyatva siddha. The ashraya itself is non-existent, if the swarupa is non-existent, or if the vyapyatva, the vyapti relation, is non-existent. The second variety is savyabhijara, vibhijara sahita, vyabhijara sahita heduho, where it is a deviant reason. A deviant reason cannot take you to valid inference, again of 3 types: sadharana, and anupasamhari, and then Satpratipakṣa, where you have a counterbalance, where the hetu is with a counterbalance, and badhita is the defective reason, and viruddha hetu is where the hetu, instead of proving what is expected, go to prove just the opposite of it. Quite like Shabdo Nityaha Karyatvat. So Karyatva just prove the opposite of what we want to prove, that is Nityatva. Anyway, the fallacies we are familiar with, but I presume that Guha is going to take us to different routes through Satpratipakṣa. Welcome, Dr. Guha, to this platform of International School of Sri Shankara Studies. And I see our Sushil inside, who has given great contributions to establishing our university at the initial times. Welcome, Sushil Insar, to this platform. And Professor Ramakrishna Bhatt is here. And I see several leading scholars who have joined us this evening. I welcome all of you once again. And let me invite Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dharmaraj Raj, to share with us few of his thoughts as the chair for this evening's lecture program. That is the World Philosophy Day lecture program sponsored by ICPR. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, dear ma'am, for the introductory remarks. Well, let me have the pleasure to welcome Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Professor Dharmaraj Adat, to chair the session. Sir, could you please bless the program with a few words?
Distinguished scholars, Professor Nyāya Guha, the chief guest of the day, Professor Srikala M. Nyāya, Director of International Sri Shankara Studies of Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi, my dear intellectuals, philosophers from various disciplines, and my dear students. It's a great pride and privilege to be here among the philosophers and scholars in connection with the World Philosophy Day celebrations. At the outset, let me congratulate the present team of International Shankara Studies for organizing a lecture program to commemorate World Philosophy Day in collaboration with ICPR. We know that every year November 18th has been celebrated as World Philosophy Day, following the directions of United Nations. I believe it is said to be the birthday of Socrates, the great thinker, who is considered as the father of Western philosophy. In India, we celebrate the birthday of Sri Shankara as Indian Philosophy Day, and incidentally, our university is named after this great thinker who hailed from Kaladi, the place where the university has been established. Bearing the name of Acharya Shankara, our responsibilities are huge. This university should play leading role in reconceptualizing Indian philosophy and its textual traditions. For this, I believe that the Department of Sanskrit and Philosophy should join hands, since what we need is a meeting between the past and the present, the ancient text and the present context. International School of Sri Shankara Studies can perhaps bridge the gulf between Sanskrit faculties and social sciences. The so far steps taken by the school, newly constituted, give hope that it will succeed in accomplishing this task. While celebrating World Philosophy Day, I am reminded of the glorious position philosophy used to hold among academic disciplines in yesteryears. Since the second half of the 20th century, its status began to diminish consistently, and by the beginning of 21st century, its fall was complete. From the queen of all sciences, it had deep fall to a status where it became the handmaid of social sciences. Of course, we do hear philosophers still claiming it to be a prior science. But the bare dark reality glare at us. We know that no government across the globe finds it imperative to promote this discipline. Well, this is not unique to philosophy. All other social sciences and humanities do share this pathetic situation in varying degrees. This that the capitalist agenda to make places of higher education as markets and education as commodities have changed the priorities of all stakeholders in the field. Stray voices from here and there against the calamities that befall to the community as a result of this, in fact, go unnoticed. It is time that we raise our voice together to bring back philosophy to its original status as the guiding discipline that gives orientation and direction to the rest of the academia. Let the celebration may go to complement activities along this direction. Once again, I congratulate the team of International Sri Shankara Studies for their enthusiastic activities in academics that will popularize the school among scholars in India and abroad. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear sir, for your detailed explanation on World Philosophy Day. We are delighted. Thank you so much. Now, with immense pleasure, let me invite Dr. Nirmalya Guha, Associate Professor, Department of Humanistic Studies, IIT Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, to deliver a paper on fallacies in the Nyāya logic with a special reference to counterbalance, Satpratipakṣa. Dear sir, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Vice Chancellor, sir. Thanks a lot, Professor Nyāya.
Can we have you in video, Dr. Guha?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. My voice is not great, so I should ask you whether you can hear me.
No, no. I was asking you whether we can have you in video.
In video? Oh, sorry, I missed that. No, the problem is my camera is not working, and so the video is a little problematic, but I think that's not a big problem. I will have slides, so that will also, that's another thing, because I use slides. So anyway, I will not appear on the screen. Yeah, I begin. And also I can see many friends. I'm feeling very happy. And okay, so we start. I go to the presentation mode, and is it visible, the screen?
Yes, sir.
Great. So now the point is, Hitvabhasa, or the inferential defects, have all the time been very, a very interesting topic for me, because when I come to Shastra as a semanticist, as a student who learned some logic. So when I was a student at Madras University, I always made the mistake of translating our Hitvabhasas into the Western fallacies, and that was a big failure. that time I started thinking about it. Why did I fail? And that failure actually taught me a lot of things. So that's the reason I started digging texts and all that stuff. So I start now. Also, I would like to say about the strategy of not the strategy, rather the intention of this talk. We are not means I do not intend to do Navya Nyāya proper in it, because for that we have several other platforms. But rather, this is my opportunity to learn from all of you and also share some of my ideas. So I would rather do so, and also today is International Philosophy Day. So I would concentrate on the possibility of having some kind of an exchange of ideas. So let's see how our Shastra can help issues in Western philosophy and cognitive science, and vice versa. Also, we should see whether we take some help from logic and also cognitive science. So let's have that in our mind. So I begin now. This is for my young friends. This is for students. We might have some students with us. So for them, it's a very brief history of Navya Nyāya. So definitely the beginning is the Nyāya Sutra of Gautama Akshapada. The date is unknown. These places are unknown. We know much about it a little bit, but it's all of it. It is legend. So some texts do say that he was Vyasa Brahmarshi's guru, but we don't really know. Now, there is a commentary by Vatsyayana on that, which is called Vatsyayana Bhashya, and then the supportive commentary by Udyotakara, which is Vartika. So this is basically the logic flow. And we have Mishrapadas, Vachaspati Mishrapadas, Tatparya Tika, and Udayanacharya's Tatparya Parishuddhi. So these five constitute the core of Prachina Nyāya. What happened is also there was another school at the time which could be somehow understood as some kind of proto-science, because they were interested in classifying the things in the world and then to determine the relations between those categories. So the Vaisheshikas. Once again, the beginning is the Vaisheshika Sutra by Kanada. There is a commentary by Prahastapada on that. Once again, we don't know the date or the place. Well, there is a commentary by Sridhara, which was perhaps written in the 9th century or 10th century. Sridhara was from some part in southern Bengal. I think he was from Bhurishreshta, which is near Howrah. So from then we can have some historical data about our acharyas and also texts. Now, a marriage took place between these two great schools, the School of Logic and the School of Proto-Science. As I said, all of us know this, but this is for the students. And that marriage did a lot of great things. From that came the great school of Neologic, and it was pioneered by Gangeshopadhyaya. He was born in a village called Karyan, which is in Mithila today, which is in Bihar now. And that's the beginning of a new era in Nyāya. And then the center, kind of after 200 years after Gangesha, the center shifted to Bengal, once again to a place called Navadvipa. So then Raghunatha was another very important person, and some scholars believe that the real Navya Nyāya, like Navya Nyāya, began with Raghunatha. So they're the kind of the latest people, and even for them, Gangesha is Prachina. So whatever. Now so that much. As I said, more than anything else, today our focus will be whether we can exchange ideas. We mean cognitive science and traditional Indian philosophy. Now, we know, once again, this is kind of retrospective. We know that Prama, or valid cognition, is the basic unit of epistemology. It can be roughly translated as knowledge, but definitely it is not knowledge. It's slightly different. Roughly speaking, a piece of knowledge is correct and is generated through some epistemic means. Once again, it's a defective definition, but this is like we need somewhere to start That's why we are doing this. And we also know that there are valid cognitions of 4 types in Nyāya. Most Nyāyikas accept, not all. There are a few exceptions. Pratyaksha, which is perception. Inference, which is anumiti or inferential cognition. Testimonial knowledge, which is Shabda Jnana or Shabda Praman, basically Shabda. And then finally, analogical knowledge, which is Upamiti. Now, the point is, each cognition, each valid cognition must be generated by a tool, an epistemic tool. Those tools are called the pramanas or epistemic instruments. For example, the sense organs are the epistemic instruments for perceptual cognition, perceptual knowledge. And the knowledge of pervasion, we're going to talk about it, is the tool, the epistemic instrument for inferential knowledge. Words of a reliable speaker is the instrument for having testimonial knowledge, and so on. I'm not getting into Upamana, and we are not talking about Atidesha Vakya and all that stuff. Now, Nyāya epistemology, we must also understand, like, I'm sure that, students who are like what I am years ago must be thinking that these two are, both are logics, Nyāya logic and Western logic, so they must be very similar. Unfortunately, or fortunately, they're not. We have a unique logic in our country. Why do I say so? It is because look at the Western logic, formal Western logic, which is axiom-based, right? Which is axiomatic, like geometry. There are a few basic principles which you cannot prove, like postulates or axioms. And on the basis of that, you can prove other things, right? You have a few methods, a few rules, and you have the axioms, rules like modus ponens. So it's like a recipe book. You cannot have just anything. You can have limited number of things. You can cook theorems by using the main ingredients, which are basically our axioms in Western formal logic. And then you follow rules like modus ponens or anything, De Morgan's or double negation, all that stuff, right? But for us, Nyāya gives a very different conceptualization of logic, which is something I missed as a student. What is it?
Dr. Guha, may I intervene? The slides aren't moving. So are you attending to the slides or you're still?
Yeah. Are they moving now?
No, they aren't.
Where is it now? Of course, I'm moving.
Oh, it is just with the first slide.
Now?
No.
Is it?
No.
I'm sorry. Can I start again then? That's very strange. Let me try, and please let me know when, because they need to move. Otherwise, things will be problematic.
True.
Just give me a sec.
Yeah.
Stop presenting. Sometimes it happens during my classes also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very embarrassing thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
If you restart, things will be fine. Yeah.
I think so, but please let me know.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Share. Yeah. Is it sharing anything?
No, you are not on presentation mode now.
Oh, I see. Window. Now, is it sharing anything?
No, still the presentation is not visible. Yeah, now it is visible.
Okay. Now, is it moving?
You try to change the slide.
Yeah,
Now we are on the 4th slide.
But is it changing?
No. You
God.
try to change from 4th to 5th?
I'm changing throughout, actually.
Oh no, it is not. It's not moving.
Oh my God, that's
it's coming. So, Dr. Guha, what I suggest is, just quickly move from the first slide so that, people at least get to see what you have written.
Okay, fine. So, yeah, in the beginning, I did some history, so I'm not, you can see right now?
Yeah, exchange of ideas. Yes.
Okay, great. So this is where I was, and then I go there. So we are talking about pramanas and all that. So you see, right?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So please let me know whenever I'm very bad with all these things, laptops and all that stuff. So
All of us are. We will get. We will
I'm
get you.
everybody.
Yeah.
My students scold me all the time. Whatever. So now is it fine?
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Now our logic. When I say our logic, I have this bias. What I mean by that is Nyāya logic. Nyāya logic is blocking based, which means that, yeah, I'm sure that many of you students make the mistake I made, that is translating between systems. Why it is not possible? Because for us, there is just one, one schema, if you call it. What is it? X is Y since Z. That's it. You just instantiate it, and you have any inference out of it, any reasoning thing. For example, you can say this hill has fire since it has smoke. You could also say this hill has smoke since it has fire. You can say anything you want to say. There is no restriction on you. You can, as I said, you can claim anything. If you make a mistake, it'll be blocked somewhere. This is the idea of Indian reasoning, which is very different from the Western ideas, because those are axiomatic and these are blocking based. We need to explore that difference. I think that helps a lot, and I think that is the reason the translation project. You remember, I mean, as a student, I remember many people were trying to translate Nyāya into Western formal logic, but that was not very successful. They definitely needed another framework. That also we are going to see why we actually needed another framework. So anyway, we are going to talk about that. Now, is it moving, Professor Nyāya? Can you see the next slide?
No, we are still with the exchange of ideas. Try to move.
Now?
No.
Why? What's the problem? Now? No, nothing?
Still stuck with the exchange of ideas.
I think.
अब तो आ रहा है.
Oh, I think then only the broken slides you can see. You can't. When I go to the full screen, you can't see anything. So
Okay.
it's very unfortunate that. So now you can move, right? Now it is moving.
It's moving.
Great. So some problem is there, definitely.
So, Dr. Guha, what I suggest is let us see at least what you have written from the first onwards. So just quickly pass on from the first slide as well, starting from the first.
Great.
Let us quickly read. Yeah.
I was here. So it was, as I said, the beginning of Nyāya and the Vaisheshika, and then the marriage, and then Nyāya, that is 10th, 11th century. Gangesha comes in Mithila, and then Raghunatha in Navadvipa, perhaps in 15th, 16th century, maybe late 15th, early 15th century. And then this slide we had, and then, so this is about the list of cognitions, valid cognitions we have, and then the pramanas, that is instruments, and here we were, it is blocking based. Now, the second point is also, Nyāya logic is more a semantic system than a logic. Why so? Because logic does not worry, Western logic does not worry about the content, right? It's all about the form. The validity there is formal. But here, for us, validity itself depends on the content. So, this logic requires, like a semantic system, it requires a database, right? It requires a description of the world you have. Without that, it can't work. So if you ask the question like, is this true or not? The answer must refer to a framework, to a reference. Yes, with respect to this frame of reference, this is true. We'll see that also. How the database, is very, very important, is absolutely essential to the Nyāya logic. We are also going to see that. That is the reason it's a semantic system, but not logic in that sense. It's not like prepositional calculus. You cannot just work on P implies Q, P therefore Q. You need the content. Okay, so then now we are going for Anumana, very short review of Anumana Pramana and the psychology of Anumana, how things happen. Also, I want to share my my technical terms, my framework. Otherwise, I cannot move on. So that is another reason. So I think you can see the slide that there is a head and there are a few cases, right? cases of coexistence. Am I sharing my slides? Are they moving?
Yeah, they are.
Great. Now, you see, somebody sees, observes that, well, every case of smoke is a case of fire. The observation is presented here this way. Not the reverse, but yes, from this, every case of smoke is a case of fire. He sees it, the subject sees it, loads and loads of times. And then, so basically, they get to know that, well, but it not that every case of fire is a case of smoke, because there is a red hot iron ball, a tapayo golaka, which has fire without having smoke, right? After having seen all that, the subject concludes anything that has smoke has fire. Now, we call this perversion. Like, this is a very gross form of perversion or vyapti. One has to know. That's why it's the knowledge perversion or vyapti jnana, which is instantiated as anything that has smoke has fire. Basically, that's the form of it. Now, here, the anumiti or the inference based on it will be this hill or anything has fire since it has smoke. Here, our target, that is the sadhya, that which is being inferred, is fire. The reason is, or the source of the inference is smoke. And the site where the inference takes place is called the paksha, which is the hell in this case, right? So now, basically, I'm trying to summarize what the subject sees. Subject sees, places with smoke, and every place also has fire. So the subject sees a kitchen, maybe several kitchens, and altars. Altars here, sacrificial altars, yajñashala, mahanasa, and also the subject sees ayogolakas having, that is red hot iron balls, having fire but no smoke, and also a lake, a water body where there is neither fire nor smoke. Now, after having sort of seen all that, after having observed all that, they kind of have this vyapti jnana, they form it. Anything having smoke has fire. And with that knowledge, they go somewhere, see smoke, they perceive smoke, remember that smoke is the reason for inferring fire, and then they infer fire. They need not perceive it, they infer it. And otherwise, inference would be useless. If I perceive the thing I infer all the time, then what does inference do? Finally, this is the anumiti, the hill has fire. Parvataha vahniman. So the full anumiti will be, this is the main anumiti, the anumiti. This part is technically called the anumiti. And if you want to include the hetu, it will be Parvataha vahniman tuma. So then the central ideas, I'm going to give a summary of that. Once we have the provision, schematically speaking, it will be any case of X is a case of Y, which also means Y pervades X, which also means X is pervaded by Y. You can say that, yatra dhumaha tatra vahnihi. You can also say that vahnihi dhuma vyapakaha. You can also say that dhumaha vahni vyapyaha. One will do, right? They're the same thing, so to say, mostly the same thing. Now, so this is one thing you require. This is essential things for ingredients for inference. And the second thing is this site locatedness. What is it? The reason X must be there in the site. So in our case, the hell has smoke, right? Without having smoke, if I do not see smoke there, I do not infer fire there, right? So I need to see the reason in the site. Finally, consideration, which is the site has the reason that is pervaded by the target. In this case, this hill has smoke that is pervaded by fire. So basically, ayam parvataha vahni vyapya dhumavan. So I see smoke here, smoke which is pervaded by fire. Ayam parvataha vahni vyapya dhumavan. This is a form of it. So the steps are here. All of us know it. But anyways, I just wanted to give kind of instantiations of the steps. So the perception of X, which is seeing smoke. The site locatedness, that is the site has X, that is the hill has smoke. the recollection of the provision, that is vyapti smarana, which is any case of smoke is a case of fire, which is the main pramana, which is the instrument in this case, and then the consideration, which is this hill has smoke that is pervaded by fire, which is the operation or the consideration. I call it an operation for several other reasons. We may not get into it right now. And finally, the anumati, the final phalibhuta gnana is, this site has Y, which is therefore this hill has fire. This is the anumati part of it. Now, always any inference involves three inferential claims. Every inference. So the central form of it is S has T, since S has R. Now, S, T, and R are sort of mnemonic symbols. You can see S stands for site, T target, R reason. Then the Paksharmata is S has R, that is Pakshaha, Hetuvan, and then finally Yatra Hetu Tatra Satyah. If you want, we want to summarize it, any case of R is a case of T, right? So this is how, these are instances of that. Now, the point is, when is an inference defective? Only when any claim is contradicted, the inference is contradicted. And what I mean by contradiction, let's see that. Now, the contradiction comes, or the conflict, or the challenge comes from the inferential defect, which the defect is a real thing, which is very, very important. The defect must be a real thing. So a technical definition of it, the content of the valid cognition C is the inferential defect of the inference F, if and only if C contradicts any assertion made by F. Basically, such a content is a fact because it's the content of a valid cognition. If my cognition is valid, if it is a yathartha jnana, if it is a prama, of course its content must be, must be a fact. It must be there somewhere, right? It must obtain, right? So it is a vastu sthiti. Example, the valid cognition, there is no smoke on this hill, contradicts the site locatedness of the inference, this hill has fire since it has smoke, right? Because there is a valid cognition that there is no smoke on this hill. So if I try to infer this hill has fire since it has smoke, definitely, a piece of the content of a piece of valid cognition contradicts it. Because the contradictory thing is valid, I don't accept. Actually, it is not even generated. If I have the blocking cognition, a blocking valid cognition, or a blocking cognition for that case, I will not even have the inference because it is blocked in the, even before it is born. But the point is, in order to be an inferential defect, it has to be the content of a valid cognition. Otherwise, anything goes. We will talk about that. Facts are enlisted on the database. Now, why did I say so? Suppose somebody thinks or somebody is convinced that some hill does not have fire, but actually it has fire, right? In that case, if somebody else tries to sort of infer fire there, that will be contradicted by the first person's kind of belief, that a strong belief, maybe conviction that this hill has got no fire. That will work, that should work as a badhahitvabhasa, right? Because we will talk in details, but this is an example. But it will not. Why? Of course, it's a blocker if that the first person who thinks that there is no fire on that hill will never have the inference this hill has fire since it has smoke. But you see, because it is invalid, the cognition the first person had was invalid, it will not be considered a fallacy or an inferential defect, right? So this is very, very important. Only a fact can contradict a bad inference, that is an invalid inference. Now, one very important, very interesting issue I felt, and this is after years and years of studying, like I also know the problems of students, young students, when they start doing things. Now, mere facts for us are useless because There is a fact, vastu sthiti. How does it help me? Unless it doesn't become part of my knowledge work, right? So this fact must be a known one. That is the reason, Acharya, our Nyāya Kulaguru, Gangeshopadhyaya, doesn't choose, vastu sthiti, which is useless, right? Just what is there, some kind of whatever tattva, vastu, in the definition of a fallacy, but he uses the content of a valid cognition because it's a valid cognition. It's part of my knowledge system, and because it is valid, its content is related, or rather, its content corresponds somehow to the world. Now, once again, I'm not using the word corresponds in a very strict sense. I'm doing it in a very rough, in a very gross way, because we didn't really have a corresponding theory. Okay. Now, as I said, for us, this yathartha jnana vishayatva is very, very important. Now, here is, this is a very small part of Tattva Chintamani, Anumana Khanda. I just read it out. I'm sorry I just gave it in Devanagari, but because I'm going to read out and I'm going to translate, I think it's fine. Tatra Anumiti Karani Bhuta Abhava Pratiyogi Yathartha Jnana Vishayatvam. That is one definition. Second lakshana, yad vishayatvena linga jnanasya anumiti pratibandhakatvam tatvam etvabhasatvam, that is to be added. Or jnayamanam sat anumiti pratibandhakam yat tatvam va etvabhasatvam. Here this tatvam va etvabhasatvam will go with every other definition. Three are offered. The first one perhaps is the most important. All the commentators basically write the commentaries, mostly on the first one. We're going to read the first one, like we are trying to understand, study the first definition, which roughly translates as this. The inferential defect is the content of a piece of valid cognition that must be the absentee of an absence, which causes an inferential cognition. Now, what does it mean? First of all, it claims that the defect must be a fact. Once again, not directly, but in an indirect way. He says, yathartha jnana vishaya. Secondly, it is such a fact whose knowledge must be absent. When you have a bad inference, right? So he doesn't say bad inference here, but that's the whole idea. If one, it has to block an inference. Two, it has to be valid. Now, a valid blocker can block only invalid things, right? That's the whole idea. So definitely a blocker, a good blocker, a fact, or a truth, or a true whatever, an object, real object, blocks bad inferences. How? Now here is an example. I think examples are best. Now, suppose there is a subject who, an epistemic subject who has not seen a red hot iron ball on Yoguraka, but has seen that every case of fire is a case of smoke, right? So wrong thing. Now, then with that, then he forms a wrong vyapti and wrong conclusion about coexistence. And then he managed to see fire somewhere. And then from that fire, I think you can see the fire, it's between the hill and the tree. From that, he infers that this hill has smoke since it has fire, right? Now, this is wrong. This is a bad inference. This cannot be inferred because it has got this underlying claim, which is anything having fire has smoke. It is very schematic. From the anumati, from the form of the anumati, one can derive, one can extract the form of the vyapti. Because it's very neat. I say parvataha vahnivan dhuma. So basically my form is yatra dhuma tatra vahni. It's very mechanical. That's the vision. And my paksha is parvataha dhumavan. And my anumiti is parvataha vahnivan. So it's that very mechanical. I can derive it anytime. Now look here. It is not true that anything having fire has smoke. So this person, if this truth was known to him, because the red hot iron ball has fire but no smoke. This is the content of a valid cognition, right? that the red hot iron ball has fire without having smoke. But this is missed by a subject, right? Now, had it been there, this piece of true thing, then they would never have that bad influence, right? So its absence is a necessary condition for one to have a bad influence, right? So because the blocker is not there, they could have the inference. When the blocker is a good one, the blocked inference is a bad one. When the blocker is a bad one, an invalid one, definitely the blocked inference is a good one. So our intention is to take only good blockers, the true blockers, so that they can block bad inferences. Only in the absence of such a content, a bad inference can be made. That absence is a necessary condition for the genesis of a bad inference. So a bad inference is blocked by a good content. That's what Nyāya was trying to say. That is how we need the database, right? Without which, without a description of the world, the Nyāya cannot operate, right? Because for each and everything, when they mention a fallacy, they have to say, you make a mistake, right? For example, you say, how is it invalidated? That is, a lake has fire since it has smoke. The Nyāya will tell you, you go and check. Right? You go and check, there is no fire in the lake, right? You see, the world has this description, right? The world of the Nyāya also has a description. Without having that, I cannot invalidate it, right? It's unlike, a Western fallacy, right? It is not an undistributed middle or whatever, like a modern fallacy, wrong instantiation or, whatever, several other fallacies, whatever it is, right? I can't say that this is not modus ponens. This is some other stupid thing, which is not a move in our logic. That's why my conclusion was wrong. The database consists of kind of facts, right? One can be hill 1 does not have smoke, hill 2 does not have fire, and stuff like that. We will explore this. Now, what is an inference? The first inference is deviation. We're not going to discuss all because we need to talk about Satpratipakṣa, Vyavichara. So that is Sadharana Savyavichara, the first thing we are going to take. We are not going to take Asadharana and Anusamhari. Now, it is a defect that challenges the provision of an inference. What is the provision? In the case of R, in the case of T. Suppose one infers that hill is smoky since it is fiery. The provision claim of this inference is anything that has fire has smoke. However, this is wrong. Since a red hot iron ball which is fiery without being smoky is evidence against it. So S5 here is the blocker, and S5 is a fact which is part of one's database, right? It is not the case that every case of fire is a case of smoke. How? Evidence is red hot iron ball, right? Yeah. Second one, the unestablished reason, Swarupa Siddhi. There is one asiddhi. As I said, we are going to take everything. The unestablished reason is a defect that targets the site location, which is S as T. S means site, and R, S as R. R is reason. For example, hill 1 has fire since it has smoke. Now, hill 1 does not have smoke. Means it is, it's part of my database. I know. It's a fact that it doesn't have smoke. The real absence of smoke from hill 1 is the unestablished reason for the inference hill 1 has fire since it has smoke. It's the very first sentence of my database, right? So that's the reason. It will not allow any bad inference to be made, right? Any bad inference having that form, which form I mentioned. Third one, opposition or badha. It is a defect that targets the main assertion of the inference, that is S has T. That is basically Paksha Sadhyavan. One example, hill 2 has fire since it has smoke. It could also be the lake has fire since it has smoke. Now, hill 2 does not have fire. I know it. I have a fact. And, I check my fact. My database tells me that it doesn't have fire, right? So here, the hill without fire is the opposition or badha. So it is the second sentence of my database. So the database basically roughly consists of facts. Another one, the unestablished site, that is another asiddhi. It is the defect that partially targets the principal inferential assertion by targeting a property of this site. For example, the unestablished site of the inference, the golden hill has fire, is the absence of goldenness from the hill. That is S6, the sentence. There is no golden hill. Similarly, the hill has golden fire as the unestablished target, Sadhya Siddhi, because goldenness is always absent from fire. So yes, you can see the sixth sentence, there is no golden hill. Now this is a partial denial. It's not a whole denial, but even partial denials would do. So I wanted a variety of hetwabhasas to make my point, and then I move on because we need to talk about Satpratipakṣa. Now, what is the scheme of the Nyāyika, which is so different from the Western scheme? Here is the scheme. It works this way. See, so here is a subject, and yeah, these are all imaginary things, but this is a pedagogical device. What actually happens, kind of thing. It has got a processing area and an evaluation area. So the evaluation area we are not going to talk about. That is basically the area of the tarka, but we are talking about inference. So, and there is a knowledge area, right? And the knowledge area consists of the database and any newcomer, right? Whatever we add. So the additional knowledge will be added there. Now, how it is generated, how a new piece of knowledge is generated, say inferential knowledge, we are talking about it. Suppose, something comes there. For example, well, this hill has smoke, and it goes to the processing area, and then, another, I remember, well, anything having smoke has got fire. So then the inference is formed, right? It is processed because I have got kind of the required premises. So here it is, born, or whatever, it is processed. And if there is no blocking, so nothing kind of resists it, it would actually pass all gates. But if there is any blocker anywhere in my knowledge area, if any licensed, piece of knowledge goes against it, against this newly formed thing, for example, this hill has
You're not audible. Hello? ശരി ശരി ഓക്കെ കുഴപ്പമില്ല ഓക്കെ മാഷ് Hello? Hello, Dr. Guha, we can't hear you. Hello, Dr. Guha? Hello?
Oh, ma'am, I think he has left the meeting.
Okay. I'll try contact him and find out what has happened.
Oh, definitely. Some kind of, yeah.
Yeah, now we can hear you. Now,
Oh, great. So, I'm very sorry for this. Some kind of problem. I don't know what.
please start sharing the screen once again.
Yeah. That's what. I'm going to share my screen and.
And then I'll tell you which slide you have. We
I'm going to do
last saw. Yeah.
Window. Let me. Can you see now the slides?
No, you haven't started presenting.
Can you see the slides?
No.
Can you now?
No.
Very strange.
Yeah, it's coming.
Okay, it's coming, right? So was it clear?
Yeah, this we have seen. Yeah, you were talking about this. Yeah.
So shall I start from here?
Cognitive blocker also we have seen. Next slide.
So these slides have you seen?
Yeah, we have. Next.
Okay. So then it's not very much. These slides. So how it is enhanced? Now this one counterbalancing. No. So we start here. I think somebody tried to record and then it left automatically or something like that. Because I didn't see anything. I'm very sorry for this. Okay. So now you can see, right? This counterbalancing.
Yeah.
Great. So please call the moment I don't know, something is happening. So please let me know. Okay. Counterbalancing. Now it's a tool for data management. Why so? Already we have seen that we have this blocking-based system, right? Now, what is counterbalancing? This is from a paper by N. It's called a monstrous inference called Mahavidyanumara and Cantor's diagonal argument. And now, you see, Professor Nyāya, you gave the example of Shabdaha Anityaha Karyatvat, right? Yeah. So now my problem is when I was a student, it didn't appeal to me. So I thought that perhaps if I want to talk about it, I need to give some other example so that, an example that would kind of appeal to everybody. So that's why I came up with this imaginary story. But I think it makes sense. Now, what happened is this. The story goes this way. Some physicians have observed that somebody who eats strawberries every day suffers from coccidiostasis, and somebody who eats blackberries every day never suffers from the disease. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are. Good.
Now, both the observations are uncounted. You see, both are fine. They seem fine. They seem innocent, right? In separation. Somebody who eats strawberries every day suffers from coccidiostasis, some imaginary disease. Somebody who eats blackberries every day never suffers from this disease, right? The problem begins when the physician finds a little boy who eats both strawberries and blackberries every day. Does he have coccidiostasis? The problem is they have no other way to investigate. So they just have to infer, right? It would be very easy if the boy had strawberries every day, because then they would infer definitely he has coccidiostasis, right? But the problem is he eats both blackberries and strawberries. Now, the problem is they block each other, right? Why? Because the physicians now face a dilemma since the following inferences counterbalance each other. What are the inferences? The boy has coccidiostasis since he eats strawberries every day, and the boy does not have coccidiostasis since he eats blackberries every day. Both the inferences cannot have factual support. Both cannot be correct, right? One must be wrong. That's the problem here. Now, any case of daily consumption of strawberries is a case of coccidiostasis. Any case of daily consumption of blackberries is a case of the absence of coccidiostasis. Now, these two these positions now are they're tied in contest, right? And there is no tiebreaker because they're equally powerful. This is the problem with the Satpratipakṣa. Because of their equal power, nobody is defeated. What do I do? But the problem is, now it's a definitional problem. Why? This was my main interest in Satpratipakṣa. Why it is a definitional problem? Because our database cannot anymore consist of facts, because both these, the strawberry case and the blackberry case, or the strawberry rule and the blackberry rule, cannot be facts. Any one of them is a fact, perhaps, but we don't know which one, right? In that case, but also, so what do we do with the validity, right? So look at our definition. The content of the valid cognition C is the inferential defect of the inference F, right? If and only if C contradicts any assertion made by F. Look at this valid cognition; it cannot be dropped, right? This is the problem. So what shall we do now to revise our main definition of Etvabhasa? This can be one idea, which kind of has been collected from some tikas on Bhasha Paricheda, Siddhanta Muktavali, and also some other places. But then I will try to show that even this doesn't work. What is it? We redefine. And am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Great. And also I should be visible. The slides should be there. So yeah. Also, now the new definition is the content of the uninvalidated cognition C is the defect of the inference F, if and only if C contradicts any assertion made by F. Now I do not stick to validity, but I talk about uninvalidated cognition, which can be translated. Not that this is a translation in the text. It's called agrihita apramanyaka. So what is this agrihita apramanyaka? Whose invalidity has not been captured, has not been apprehended, agrihita, right? Such a thing, even a fact is agrihita apramanyaka, because nobody has kind of known the invalidity of a fact, because a fact is not invalid. Or maybe there is another piece of cognition which is not a fact, which may be a fact, but nobody has proof that it is invalid, right? Any such cognition would be uninvalidated. For example, in the case of cognitiveness, both the cognitions of pervasion are uninvalidated, since nobody could confirm that they're invalid, right? Neither can be claimed as invalid, since the invalidity has not been captured. There is no evidence for the invalidity. That's the problem. We must note that every valid cognition is also uninvalidated, although every uninvalidated cognition is not valid. Now, with this modification, does the definition work? My suggestion is, not my suggestion, sorry. My guess is no, even then it doesn't work. Why not? Here's the problem. We can perform kind of a thought experiment with the definition now. Suppose, being a physician, John has observed that daily consumption of strawberries guarantees cognitiveness, but he has not observed that each case of daily consumption of blackberries has been a case of the absence of cognitiveness. He has not read any paper in the medical journals about the second observation, but that observation is there, it's standard. When John sees the boy who eats both strawberries and blackberries every day, John concludes that the boy has the disease. Even that's problematic, right? It cannot be uncounted. One cannot conclude that way. For John, the second observation is not something whose invalidity has not been confirmed. John would rather consider the observation invalid because he doesn't know, he has no knowledge of the other perversion, right? But intuitively, there is something wrong with John here. He has personally failed to be updated. He hasn't seen, the results of the reports of different tests, whatever it is. In this case, counterbalance is a defect only for those who know that both the strawberry observation and the blackberry observation seem to work fine. That suggests a commonly accessible database for physicians. That is, the stakeholders in this case. For each and every knowledge world, there must be some stakeholders. In this case, they are physicians, right? So there, I take, so the summary is this. This is how I would sort of arrange organize my problem. So the definition, that is the content of a valid cognition C, is the defect of the inference F if and only if C contradicts any assertion made by F. Now we have seen that there's a problem with validity. If this is the definition, then counterbalance is left out. I shouldn't say is not left out, right? it is left out because definitely both the provisions, the strawberry provision and the blackberry provision, cannot be facts, right? They cannot be contents of valid cognitions. Now, problem is if the valid cognition part is dropped, then anything goes. Means I can imagine, right? And I can say, well, this imaginary blocker is blocking a real inference. So something like validity, some checker should be there with the blocker, right? But the problem is if unqualified, uninvalidated cognition is used, then somebody's personal failure will be an inferential defect. For example, John, who could not update himself, right, as a physician, who did not read reports about the consumption of blackberries, right? So then he could not make that inference. So that's the problem we have. So this is the problem statement. So I wanted to kind of learn a little bit from cognitive scientists as far as this problem is concerned. I thought they can help us. Now I try to read texts pretty much thoroughly. Samanya Nitya I try to read. I never found really a definition that covers all cases of cognition, especially Satpratipakṣa. Everywhere, something will be problematic. That's why I thought that we are also not doing traditional Nyāya in that sense, but we are saying that, look, Satpratipakṣa is an immensely valuable tool in the hand of the logician. It should be there. Also, it should take some, perhaps insight from cognitive science. What is it? Well, look, this CRUM approach, most of us would definitely know, this computational representational understanding of mind. It ignores shared nature of knowledge. So a few quotes from Taggart, which is a very famous textbook of cognitive science. Just as cognitive science has tended to neglect the location of thinkers in their physical environment, so it has tended to neglect the interaction of thinkers in social environment. Philosophy, cognitive psychology, and artificial intelligence have largely been concerned with the mental representations and processes that occur in individual thinkers. Now, there is also a different approach. So, kind of Taggart keeps blaming philosophers and artificial intelligence people for doing that, for ignoring culture and common database, common knowledge, collective knowledge and stuff like that. So his conclusion is this, he calls it modified CRUM approach. He says, taking the social challenge seriously requires CRUM, a somewhat different perspective on representations and processes. The function of mental representations is not just for them to be representations by and for an individual, but also for them to be shared and used collectively. Prepositions, rules, concepts, images, analogies, and even distributed representations need to be transmitted from one individual to another. Taking from this, I would say that we need to modify perhaps our definition of inferential defect, and I would introduce the idea of the commonly accessible database for the Nyāya model. I think that can kind of fix some issues. Now, we redefine our fallacy. We now say that the content of the uninvalidated cognition C is the defect of the inference F, if and only if C contradicts any assertion made by F. Now, we redefine uninvalidatedness. That's what perhaps we can do. The cognition C is uninvalidated if and only if the invalidity of C has not been confirmed with respect to the commonly accessible database. So now, what is the example? Both the cognition, somebody who eats strawberries every day does suffer from cognitive stickers, and somebody who eats blackberries every day never suffers from cognitive stickers, are uninvalidated. Since on the common database accessible to all physicians, their invalidity has not been confirmed. That is, they both seem to be valid for the common database. Now, problem is, on the same database you find, it is not the case that anybody, that anything having fire has smoke. That is the common database. And you need to update yourself as the epistemic subject, to have really sort of really good inferences unless you have a personal failure. Now so in this light we can see that it was John's failure that he couldn't update himself, right? He could not access the common database which is already there. That is literature, medical literature. He just knew a set of cases, the strawberry cases, everybody having strawberries every day has Cockney status. But then because of that, he could infer, well, this kid has got Cockney status because he has strawberries every day. Now, it's a personal failure, but if we define this uninvalidated, if we can redefine it in terms of a common database, commonly accessible database, then perhaps, if we bring the social, the collective, the collective knowledge or the knowledge of the society, knowledge of the community, then perhaps, the personal failures will be I would say, discounted, right? And then fallacies would be defined on the basis of a commonly accessible database. And many prepositions on it now will be facts, but many will be unconfirmed, right? This is a hugely important tool in the hand of, a cognitive manager, right? So this is about inconsistency management. We have data. Much of it is also inconsistent. We don't know what to do with it. Now, the Indian logician provides us with a tool for managing the inconsistency. Here it is, Satpratipakṣa. But then, the way they define it, perhaps, I'm not claiming that I'm 100% correct, but I didn't find a really common definition of Atwabhasas, a definition that actually covers this. So, definitely not in Gangeshwar. Even I tried Samanya Nirukti Gadadhari. There are fragmented things, but then not really a definition that covers, not really a sort of a Siddhanta Lakshana of Atwabhasa that covers even Satpratipakṣa. But I think we can't sacrifice it. So a commonly accessible database now would look like this. You see here, maybe this is a fact. See S4, every case of smoke is a case of fire is a fact. But S9 and S10 are not facts. These are any case of daily consumption of strawberries is a case of Cockney stickers. S10 is the blackberry case. These are not facts, but these are also uninvalidated. That is, their invalidity has not been confirmed. That is why they're provisionally there. And as long as they're unconfirmed, they're there. Because you cannot dismiss. They work finally in separation. Even then, they do not work. They do not work at all when they meet each other in one single case, right? There comes the problem of inconsistency. And here is Satpratipakṣa to manage that, or for that case, the entire Nyāya framework to handle inconsistency. Thank you. And also, sorry for all the trouble I made.
Thank you so much, dear sir, for your amazing talk on Nyāya fallacies. It was wonderful with attractive slides. Now the floor is open to all.
Can I ask one question?
Please.
Yeah, please.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I'm Santosh.
Please be fast. Go ahead. Please.
What is there beyond Nyāya logic? Beyond the Nyāya logic.
Please be specific. What do you exactly mean by that?
If we take logic, what is beyond logic?
What's beyond logic?
Logic is a set of rules. What is beyond that rules? If we break that rules, whether we can go beyond it.
Yes, the Vedanta will tell you that Brahman is beyond logic, but that is not really part of part of this samna.
Yeah.
So we are talking about logical rules or
Yes.
maybe semantic rules. So yeah, but there are things perhaps which are illogical, which are beyond logic, but that's not a topic.
Can max be added to Nyāya logic?
What can be added?
Max, mathematical.
This is a very, very important question. Now, you see, even Nilakanta Somayaji uses the Nyāya format. He uses all its classes. If you take his work, the great mathematician of Kerala school, you see, he uses all Nyāyika terms. He talks about Upapatti. He talks about, of course, the Pramanas. There is no pure mathematician of that stature would, speak so much of logic right in the West. But look at us. So even Nilakantha, being such a super mathematician, uses Nyāya. So the very idea is everything is Nyāya. So we did not really differentiate between Ganita and Nyāya those days. So Upapatti. So the approach is an Upapatti. Like when I say that this hill has fire, I have to give the Upapatti of it. I have to say, since it has smoke and everything having smoke is also having fire. Right? That's the Upapatti for it. So Nilakantha's scheme is exactly like that. So he talks about all fallacies, and he also shows fallacies while working. The same thing applies to even Chanaka Samhitakara. All Ayurveda texts, they also use the Nyāya logic as their kind of their diagnostic tool and every other thing. So I think yes. In that sense, Ganita would be kind of an extension of Nyāya.
May I request Professor Bhatt, Ramakrishna Bhatt, to continue with the discussion which is initiated prior to the session? Is Professor Ramakrishna Bhatt around? Over to Professor Bhatt. Sir, please unmute.
डॉक्टर गुहा जी.
Yes, Professor Bhatt.
गुहा जी नमस्ते. बहुत बहुत सुंदर है, बहुत बहुत सुंदर है. वेलकम. एक बात ये है, ये जो हेत्वाभासत्वम करके आप जो है गंगेश उपाध्याय जी का वचन आप दिखा दे हैं स्क्रीन में, अनुमित कारणीभूता भाव प्रतियोगी यथार्थ ज्ञान विषयत्वम, इस प्रकार से 3 है. यद विषयत्वेन ज्ञान विषयत्वम. हेत्वाभास शब्द का क्या अर्थ है, इसको आप नहीं बताएं.
Actually, yeah.
एक मिनट पूरा होता है. आपसे बहुत कुछ, मैं समय नहीं है तो पूछना था.
Okay.
वास्तविक जो हेत्वाभास शब्द है, इस शब्द का 2 अर्थ होता है. एक तो दोष, दूसरा दुष्ट हेतु.
Yes.
अब ये हेत्वाभाव जो है अनुमित कारणीभूता भाव प्रतियोग यथार्थ ज्ञान विषयत्वम, ये क्या है? हेतु का लक्षण है कि या दोष का लक्षण, उसका आप जो है विवरण नहीं किए. और सत्प्रतिपक्ष जो आप कह रहे हैं, क्या है ये चीज सत्प्रतिपक्ष? इस सत्प्रतिपक्ष को लेकर के महाविद्या में क्या करेंगे? महाविद्या क्या होता है, उसमें पक्ष हेतु साध्य, महाविद्या पर असध्य तो नहीं है, वो सध्य तो. न्याय शास्त्र में महाविद्या करके कोई ऐसा अनुमान नहीं है, वेदांत में है, न्याय शास्त्र में तो ऐसा नहीं है. तो महाविद्या के तरफ में आप जो है एक उदाहरण कुछ नहीं दिए हैं. और वहाँ ये सत्प्रतिपक्ष क्या करेगा? सत्प्रतिपक्ष शब्द का क्या मीनिंग क्या है? आप दोष को कहते हैं या दुष्ट हेतु को कहते हैं, क्या है? और एक बात, अब जो है चित्र में काला चित्र के फाइटिंग करने का एक चित्र दिखा दिए स्क्रीन में, इससे हुआ क्या? 2 काला चित्र जो है वो परस्पर फाइटिंग करने से क्या सत्प्रतिपक्ष होता है?
Are you done?
क्या है? ये सब जो है अस्पष्ट है. और सब जो है, जो आपका जो सब्जेक्ट है, टॉपिक लिए है, वो जो है उतना स्पष्ट रूप से आप जो है नहीं बता दिए.
Yeah. So the thing is, I think
आप हिंदी समझते हैं ना?
Yeah, of course. He comes from the Hindi side.
बनारस हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी में रहते हैं, तो आप जो हिंदी समझना चाहिए, समझते हैं कि नहीं?
Yeah, he understands. Professor Bhatt, please mute your mic. Professor Bhatt, please mute your mic. Professor Bhatt, yeah.
अहं हिंदी भाषां न गच्छामि, संस्कृतं वदितुं शक्नोमि. मम अत्र लक्षणं तु मया दत्तं. तत् लक्षणे दोषस्य एव लक्षणं दत्तं, न तु दुष्टहेतोः. तदा अत्र अहं मन्ये यत् मया उक्तं तन्न भवता अवगतम्. आप फॉलो नहीं कर सके हो. Actually, I gave all these things. I gave the the definition of the defect. Not just I showed the picture. I gave definitions, but you need to follow it. You couldn't do that. I think you didn't understand what I was trying to say. So I can't speak Hindi anyways. And also I would request you either to speak in Sanskrit or in English.
Oh, you don't understand Hindi, is that, Dr. Guha?
Yeah, I don't understand, but I speak very badly. Everybody makes fun of my Hindi, so I'm very very comfortable speaking Hindi. Sanskrit is fine.
So you want him to repeat it in Sanskrit?
गुहा जी, डॉक्टर गुहा जी, सुनिए मैं जो कह रहा हूँ, मैं आपका जो है ठीक से फॉलो किया हूँ। मेरा सब्जेक्ट है न्याय शास्त्र। मैं उस अनुमिति को जो है सत्प्रतिपक्ष को बहुत बार पढ़ा चुका हूँ, अच्छी तरह से पढ़ा हूँ। मैं बनारस में पढ़ा हूँ, बनारस यूनिवर्सिटी का विद्यार्थी हूँ, मैं अच्छी तरह से पढ़ा हूँ। बस आप जो है हेत्वाभास जो कह रहे हैं, गंगेशोपाध्याय का वचन लिखे हैं, अनुमिति कारणीभूत अभाव प्रतियोग यथार्थ ज्ञान विषयत्वम। ये हेत्वाभास क्या है? इसलिए मैं कहा हेत्वाभास शब्द का मीनिंग दो होता है, एक तो दोष, एक तो दुष्ट हेतु। आप यहाँ पर सत्प्रतिपक्ष करके किसको लेते हैं? दोष को लेते हैं कि दुष्ट हेतु को लेते हैं? क्या लेते हैं?
भगवान,
क्या आपका मतलब क्या है?
Mute your mic.
मया हेतु दोषस्य एव लक्षणं कृतं, तत्तु यत्तु लक्षणं मया प्रदर्शितं तत्तु हेतु दोषस्य एव, न तु दुष्ट हेतोः। तत्तु लक्षण कथन समये उक्तमेव, अहं मन्ये तत्तु न भवता अवगतम् इति।
I suppose you are clear, Dr. Guha.
किं प्रयोजनं? यतोहि सत्प्रतिपक्षः तत्र कः भवति?
सत्प्रतिपक्षः यत्र विरोधी यत्र तु
ह्रदो वह्निमान् धूमात् ह्रदः वन्यभावान् जलात् इत्यत्र धूम हेतु सत्प्रतिपक्षः भवति।
एवं
जलः वन्यमान् धूमात्, ह्रदः वन्यमान् धूमात् ह्रदः वन्यभावान् जलात्, वन्य साध्याभाव व्याप्य प्रतिहेतुमान् पक्षः।
एवं
महाविद्यायां तत्र तस्य कः सम्बन्धः?
किमर्थं
भवद्भिः तत्र स्क्रीन् मध्ये महाविद्या विचारे उक्तं, तदर्थं मया पृच्छ्यते।
महाविद्या यत् मया उक्तं तत्तु न भवता अवगतम् इति अस्माकं समस्या। तत्तु एकः निबन्धः, महाविद्यायाः उल्लेखः अस्माकं स्पीच मध्ये नासीत्।
Okay.
भवता स्क्रीन् एव दृष्टं, परन्तु भवता मम वक्तव्यं न अवगतं सम्यक् इति अहम् अवगच्छामि। He understood read the screen, but
I grasp. I presume we need to go further and then take other questions as well. Are there any further questions?
Can I ask one more?
You had a chance. Let's wait for others.
Yeah.
We will take your question towards the close if you have any more.
Yeah.
Others?
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद है। ठीक है, बहुत अच्छा है, बढ़िया है।
Thank you.
धन्यवादान् समर्पयामि।
Thank you, sir.
धन्यवादः।
Do we have any more questions? If no one has to ask anything, then I will raise a couple of issues with Dr. Guha. Dr. Guha, lovely. And it is really hard to follow you because I have not been doing Nyāya for quite some time. Being jack of all trades, I do a couple of things, and mostly Vedanta is what is being addressed currently. So there's Agrahita Pramanyakatva. And then, you have exemplified with eating strawberries and blackberries. So my concern is, your solution that to give. Do you hear me, Dr. Guha?
Yes, I can. I do.
Yeah. So you towards the close, you wanted to bring in the commonly accessible database to make Satpratipakṣa more meaningful. And tell me if I have understood you right. And then my concern is that you seem to, vacate that this is a kind of an induction wherein contingencies are permitted. And see, for instance, Buddhas say that the whole inference is only the Parata Pramanya is, Parardhanumanaha is in fact a scientific method. It is no inference at all. So, don't you see a kind of a scientific exercise being worked out? And that is very, very clear when you say that unless it is being proved fallacious. So that being the case, unless it is being proved fallacious is something well accepted within the scientific norm. So I think this commonly accessible database with that solution, are you trying to take it to perfection? And my worry is that should we do it at all? Yes, and I have other concerns also, which I'll raise after this. Yes.
This was my central problem, Professor Nyāya, to be honest, because when I was reading Satpratipakṣa, also like from Gadadhari and all that stuff, this was my problem, because the moment I wanted to cover Satpratipakṣa by the Samanya Nirukti, Hitvabhasa Samanya Nirukti, Samanya Lakshana, it was not covered. That was my problem, because I showed right from the text, Yad Vishishta Vishayagatvena, that's what Raghunatha adds, right? Now, the problem is the moment you add facts, right, then Satpratipakṣa is out. But then I do not want it to be left out, because it's such an important tool, right? A tool that nobody else has got, only we have got. So then could we have any thing? So my problem is the traditional definitions did not really work for me. I may be wrong. I cannot claim that I'm 100% correct or anything. But then I thought that perhaps we could redefine in such a way that there is, there is a traditional, there is a definition. Now, the original formulation is in Sanskrit, so that's fine. But then, so that can be done. It can be done in the very traditional framework of Navya Nyāya. At the same time, don't you think that this is how our Shastra is kind of contributing to the to cognitive science also. At the same time, we are taking this collective, which we never did before, right? Like that's another thing perhaps we missed, right? We never talked about the common knowledge and all that framework. So I thought, like by combining both, yeah, I do want to miss out Satpratipakṣa when I read the Hitvabhasa Samanya Lakshana. At the same time, I do not want to kind of see that, well, then Agrihita Pramanyakatva is the only criterion for it, right? That was my problem. So I thought, let us redefine Agrihita Pramanyakatva in a new light. And then what could be the definition? This is what I was trying to do.
Yeah. It's a wonderful attempt, and no doubt about it, and very, very original. And congratulations, I've heard it for the first time. I haven't read you much, but then I have a student, Ramya, are you here? And she's also working on embodied cognition. So may I introduce her to you? And but then she's not at all strong in the Indian side of it. So probably
Okay.
she can learn a lot from you. So my second concern is about, I'm basically an epistemologist in the sense, the Western I have done in late 80s when Gettier problem was discussed.
I know, ma'am. I know. I know.
In India, I was
Right.
the one, picked up with Sandhya Basu and all, the whole
Yes.
lot of them.
Yes.
And I've heard, I've grown up hearing Keith Laharer and a lot of them speaking about the defeasibility theory.
Right.
So the defeasibility analysis, do you think that there is at least some distant connection with this Satpratipakṣa and defeasibility? See, defeasibility, say defeasibility is applicable in justification. So
Oh,
when
yes.
you bring in evidences, it could have a pratipaksha, it could be defeated. So there
Yeah.
could be a defeater that is functioning to challenge the evidence that you bring forth, and quite like what you have said, or what is Satpratipakṣa as the definition, so Shastras do define it. Then if the cognizer or the knower, the agent, is unaware of the defeater, then what happens at the end of the show, like you think that but then quite like in other get your cases, like you cannot credit knowledge to that person. So do you think that these can be connected? Does Satpratipakṣa in some remote way reflect or represent defeasibility analysis?
Not in a remote way, ma'am. In a very direct way. Means the point is here, defeasibility is the problem because they're equally strong. The ideal Satpratipakṣa Hitvabhasa happens when the two rivals are equally strong. So you can't say that, although there is the possibility of defeat, but you don't know which one is the which one is the defeater and which one is the defeated, right? So how to handle that situation? Only when this is done, only when the tie is broken, you can think of defeat, right? What to do before the tie is broken, right? So this is the problem. So that's the reason it is a little different, from what Gettier would be perhaps.
Keith Laharer, see, it is not like, when we speak about Satpratipakṣa, you have this, as you have said, in the blackberries and the strawberries, like you do not know which one is right, and then you are on ignorance, and then therefore you have this problem of non-availability of the factual resources, that what you call the database. But then in what defeasibility, things are different, like you have some evidence and then there is a defeater that challenges it, and then you are ignorant of it, or it has not been brought to you. Yeah. So that is
So it's something like Bali and Sugriva are fighting, and then unless Sri Ramachandra comes, you don't know who is going to win and who is going to lose the game, right? So Sri Ramachandra now is the defeater. All Sugriva with Sri Ramachandra is the defeater, right? But we are talking about the situation when both the brothers are fighting, right? And when Sri Ramachandra is not there. So this is then how to handle the case, because a logician would have such cases, right? When there are two equally strong rivals, logical rivals, then what do I do? So this is about that kind of a conflict management. There it comes handy. Of course, if there is a defeating condition, then this question doesn't arise. We don't have any problems. We have a straight database, right? Well-defined database. We don't have problems. The problem is when we don't have that, then what to do? So we cannot kind of remove those things from our database because they work in separation. At the same time, we cannot have them in a straightforward way. We have to manage them. That is the reason we have.
I understand. Perfect. And my last question would be, we spoke about the formal logic practiced in the West, of which we are all aware of, where you just take care of the form and then ignore about the content and then go by the formal method. And we also know that the so-called progress that the West has evolved in mathematics, in schools of mathematics, as well as in logic and in even sciences, is by applying this formal logic. Now, Dr. Guha, do you think that Indian logicians haven't, or our way of doing logic as exactly represented by you is pretty different? But then, probably it's a stupid question to ask, couldn't we do it otherwise? Because, shouldn't Srigala be something else is a stupid question, because Srigala is what Srigala is. So similarly, Indian logic is what it is. But then nevertheless, having had two forms of logic, the formal and the so-called material, or the Indian type of logic, do you think that we are running short of anything, particularly when, people do argue that with formal logic, the West could progress their science and the rest of the things, while in India we couldn't do such things because we still place logic within epistemology, and then that is it. Yes.
Professor Nyāya, I completely understand where it is coming from. My answer would be, if you look at the computational system, a real thing, right? Logic doesn't work. Semantics works there, right? And logic becomes a part of it. So you have a database. So the whole checking happens against the database, right? Not against any abstract logical rule. Take Montague semantics, right? I have been teaching Montague semantics for last 13 years in IITs. I can teach only formal logic and semantics. Who will take my Nyāya? So from that experience, I can tell you that the useful thing is actually formal logic. It has, semantics. It has logic as its part. But if you look at it, like from our perspective, even until 300 years ago, every Shastri, like the Smarta, the physician like Charaka Samhitakara or Sushruta, or the mathematician like Nilakantha, everybody used the Nyāya framework, right? This very semantic framework. You read Charaka Samhita, there is a chapter on all these, the Nigrasthana, Hitvabhas, and all that. And you read the texts by Raghunandana, the Smarta. Once again, you find the most rigorous use of this kind of logic. And you read Nilakantha, the mathematician. He also does the same thing, right? Using the Nyāya ideas. So I would like to read their success that way. But unfortunately, we stopped 300 years ago, right? So I think that is the reason, in modern world, that is the, as people said, if the language of Principia Mathematica is so great, how come Russell did not write his book in that language? Why did he require English? I would ask the same question. But at the same time, look at our language. Look at Nyāya. Every scholar in India, the Vedantim like Madhusudana Saraswati or Gauda Brahmananda Saraswati, all the Mimamsakas, the Navya Mimamsakas, Navya Vayakaranas, Smartas, the Ganita Shastravit, everybody used the language of Nyāya, right?
Dr. Guha, I think you're not answering my question. See, there are two things that you have missed out in my question. One is that formal logic has paved way for progress in science in Europe. This is one argument which you haven't addressed. And the second thing is that I am not arguing that Nyāya has not been in use in Ayurveda or any of the systems. My question is, why is it the Nyayikas or the logicians here have failed to come up with a formal logic? Or do you think, if they haven't, do you think, is it a lacuna?
I don't think. Yeah. Because like formal logic is a part of formal semantics.
Yeah.
The formal part is there in Nyāya, because look at the schematic representation, right? When you say for each and anything, the moment you say X is Y, since Z, you can extract the forms out of it, right? But the validity depends not on a form, but on a real life thing, right? That always accommodates the formal application of it. Like formal logic is one part of formal semantics. But Navya Nyāya or our logics developed as semantic systems from the very beginning. So it is not having formal logic. Formal logic was always part of it. But because otherwise, how can you derive the form of Vyapti or the Avachedaka? See, that is absolutely formal. The moment you define even Vyapti, right? You say that, this what is it? The very Yat Samanadikarana Atyanta Bhava Pratiyogita Avachedaka Avachinnan Yan Na Bhavati. This is so formal, right? Yatat, they stand for XY, right? So it is defined formally. But the problem is when you do the vichara, you always need sentences, the real word. So this is how the formal part is always there
This is what I'm asking, Dr. Guha. See,
Yes.
when the material is brought in and made as a necessary constituent of logic, now the West would argue that we are in some way retreating from logic. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, means I don't know. I don't want to directly answer, but once again, I think it's a matter of attitude. Like attitude in the sense we did semantics. We did not do that way pure formal logic, but formal logic is always part of it. That is how every definition is given in terms of X, Y, Z. Say sadhya, hetu, which are basically variables, right? So that is the formal part of it, right? Even in the wrong lakshanas, you find it, right? For example, sadhya bhavavat avrittitvam. The first of the Vyapti Panchaka. Even sadhya is like X, hetu is like Y, and then they talk about whatever, the relations and stuff. You see, all relations are formal here. Instead of using X, Y, they use sadhya and hetu. That's what I'm trying to say, that formal logic is very much accommodated in their attitude. But, but they don't differentiate like Montague, right? Montague would rather tell you that there is no formal logic, but you do semantics and that takes care of logic. So this is how perhaps the Indian logicians looked at it.
I am reminded of Sundar Saruka, I am referring.
Yes.
Sundar says that, you would have definitely read that, that Chandil Madam's volumes, I think, Indian Philosophy of Science, wherein he says that Indian epistemologists are primarily scientists, and therefore logic was not their cup of tea. And that is one of the reasons we are primarily scientists, and as you have said, you are also trying to take it to the cognition side of it. So there is a cognitive agent and there is the phenomenal experience, and that is all that Indian philosopher is concerned about. Right. And then there is no a priori reasoning, as in the case of the Greek, where mathematics paved the foundation, with set of a priori truths, the certain truths, the infallible ones. And we have no such demand that things should be certain. And till very recently, probably till Hume, the West was obsessed with certain knowledge. So this kind of obsession was totally absent in India, because we were primarily scientists. We were just exposed to the nature, and whatever that comes from the nature in the contingent form, we were trying to take it. So, as you have said, it's option. Like, do you want to be a mathematician or a scientist? Do you want to go with deduction or induction? This is your choice, and then where you find virtue, once again, probably is your choice. Do I make sense?
Absolutely, Professor. Means I just would add one thing to what you are saying. But if you go to the text, you'll see that the entire formality or the formal understanding of it is absolutely there. All basic, definitions, as I said, like for example, Pratiyogi, Asamana Adhikarana, Yat Samana Adhikarana Atyanta Abhavat, Yat Samana Adhikarana Atyanta Abhavat, Chedakavat Chinnam Yan Nabhavati. Look at this lakshana. It is purely formal, right? It has yat, that. It has this and that, right? And it has the relation between this and that. How, right? All terms are formal. There is no matter in it, right? Matter in the, I understand. When we say kind of material semantics, there is no semantics in it. It's purely formal. And then what derives out of it would also be purely formal. For example, the moment you say sadhya bhavavati hetu avrittvam, you're making a formal statement, right? Or the moment you say hetuvati sadhyasya vrittitvam, like in every whatever, I'm not going to give translations of each and everything, but I'm trying to tell you that all these formal lakshanas are absolutely there. In fact, these are the basic lakshanas. But what comes handy is a set of real life examples in Nyāya. But the real lakshanas, in a sense, they never figure in the popular texts. That's the problem. Even in a text like Tarkasamgraha, you find hetu and sadhya, which of course these are variables, but even then, they're a little more material. But Ganesha doesn't go by that. He says yat, that, this, that. look how formal it can go. So I don't regret that we didn't have any formal understanding of it. I think it was part of it, like part of what we did. So we did both. And yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Hi, the youngsters, the young community. Well, would you?
Which logic has come first? Is it Aristotle logic or Nyaya logic?
So I didn't get the question. Sorry.
Which logic came first? Is it Aristotle logic or Nyaya logic?
I think Gautama is prior to the Buddha, because Gautama, the Buddha was absolutely, he knew Nyaya pretty well. So
What I asked is which came first?
That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying.
I'm saying that, in that case, Aristotle comes at least 200 to 250 years after Gautama Buddha. So that way, if Gautama logic was known to Buddha, then it is definitely much older, right? So I would put it.
Anyway, even by the European historians, Gautama belongs to 6th century BC or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So if that is true, then definitely it's much older.
Anyway,
Last question.
So let us not discuss history. History is not our topic. I suppose. So, we have been very bad in history. So is there any conceptual discussion further?
Last question. One last question.
Please go ahead.
Is Nyaya logic commonsensical logic or intellectual logic?
Once again, I didn't get.
Is Nyaya logic commonsensical or intellectual or combination of both?
It is not really commonsensical, because where does common sense have Satpratipakṣa? It is a little different, but then it is kind of a semantic logic. That's how I describe it. It has some formal part, and it takes examples from the real life. And when you show a defect, it must be translated in terms of some factual thing. That way, it is not commonsensical. At the same time, it is not the Western formal rigorous logic. It's somehow in between.
Yeah. Is there any question? Dr. Guha is known for taking Nyaya logic, the Prachinya, particularly the Navya logic, to the doorsteps of contemporary cognitive science. Anyone who is interested in cognitive science could have a chat with him now. Is there anyone? If not, then Shimi.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We are move on to the end of this auspicious occasion. And with lots of love, we invite Professor S. Sheba, Assistant Director, ISSS, for propose the official vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shimi. Good evening to one and all. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Dharmaraj Adad, sir, distinguished speaker, Dr. Nirmala Guha, respected teacher and the director of ISS, Professor Shekala M. Nyāya, renowned senior professors, scholars, and my dear students. Today, in this fine evening, we are happy that International School for Sri Shankaracharya Studies successfully celebrated the World Philosophy Day with the brilliant presentation by Dr. Nirmala Guha, followed by a fruitful discussion that also with the support of ICPR. Now, it is time for official vote of thanks. It is my pleasure to express our sincere gratitude to the galaxy of scholars assembled here in this virtual platform. First of all, let me express our sincere thanks to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Dharmaraj Adad, sir, who is the source of inspiration behind all the academic activities conducted in our university. On behalf of the International School for Sri Shankaracharya Studies, we express our sincere thanks to you, sir, for joining with us and for chairing this World Philosophy Day lecture program. Thank you, sir. Now, let me express our sincere thanks to Dr. Nirmala Guha for the excellent presentation. Sir, it's an excellent presentation of the topic, Fallacies in Nyāya logic with special reference to Satpratipakṣa. Sir, it is very informative and very attractive. Thank you very much, sir. Let me express our sincere thanks to our director, Professor Shekala ma'am, who master brain behind all these academic activities. Thank you, ma'am, for welcoming the audience. I take this opportunity to express our sincere thanks to Professor R.C. Sinha, Chairman ICPR, and Professor Sachidananda Mishra, Member Secretary ICPR, for the financial support provided to conduct this program. Now it is my pleasure to express our sincere thanks to our senior professors, especially Professor Ramakrishna Bhatta sir, Professor Subramania Iyer sir, Dr. B. Chandrika teacher, and all other, Dr. G. Narayanan sir, my colleague, and several other scholars from different parts of India and abroad, and also our beloved students for participating in this program. On behalf of ISS, I express our sincere thanks to one and all. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shiva.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Guha. It was wonderful.
I must thank you. I must thank you. During these Corona days, I was suffering, but really after talking to you, and also it was refreshing for me. Very great.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
We demand, we need your continued support and participation. I'll keep you informed, and whenever possible, do join us.
Anytime, Professor. Anytime.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.